Thank you, colleagues. Take your seats. We had a busy morning, really busy morning, point after point. We covered them all. And as announced, we also have an afternoon session. Getting started with our point 8 in the order of the day, exchanging views regarding allegations indicating conflict of interest regarding the child sexual abuse online regulation proposal. And we have the pleasure of welcoming again our dear Commissioner Ylva Johansson for Home Affairs, and there is also a second guest of this point in the order of the day, which is journalist Apostolis Fotiadis, which will be taking place remotely, that is online. The change of views is on the matter that I just announced. It's been organized so that we hear from our two guests this afternoon, personally in the podium, Commissioner Johansson, thank you for that, taking the bother to share this presence of yours for the LIBE Committee again. 5 minutes, then there will be a second round of 5 minutes for Mr. Fotiadis, then there will be the usual round for discussion, which I suggest you try to be precise, 1 minute of a question, so that there will be the answer. And as there are two of them, I can only ask you that you make it specific whom are you addressing the question, so that the minute question and answer is precisely to the person who is to be addressed. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Johansson. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for the work you are doing and have been doing on this file. I know we have not finalized it yet, but thank you for that. And I understand that this is also, you called for me to ask a question based on some articles that have been circulated with disinformation and insinuation, and I'm very happy to be here to be able to hopefully answer directly to your questions. First, one of the first things I did as being appointed a commissioner was to present a strategy to fight child sexual abuse, because it's a heinous crime and it's a very common crime. Probably 10 or 20% of children fall victim to sexual violence during their childhood. I presented that in July 2020, and now we're implementing this. We presented a temporary protection legislation in September 2020. It came into force the years after, and I have already announced that I will present a permanent legislation when it comes to detection online, and this is what I presented in May last year, and this is what we are discussing now, and I will soon also present a revision of the directive. What is this about? This is about three things of protecting children. First, to rescue children that are victims of ongoing sexual violence, where the reports that we receive, police receive today from internet companies are the main starting point from investigations to rescue children. Second is about the privacy of children, where we can see that many of those videos and pictures are circulating for years after the actual rape took place. And third is, of course, to stop this illegal content to be spread online. This has been a delicate challenge because, of course, it's necessary to find the right balance for the fundamental rights. And here, what is proportionate in this aspect is, of course, important. How did we do this? As I said, we have been transparent from the beginning that this was ongoing. We have followed the normal legislative procedure. We had a thorough impact assessment. We had 2 years of public consultation. We had 3 public stakeholder consultations, 1 on the roadmap, on the dedicated public consultation before launch, and 1 feedback on the proposal. We have got a lot of replies from citizens, from NGOs, from authorities, from businesses, from research institutes. My team has met with dozens of stakeholders and spoken and been present at many conferences and workshops. We have got a lot of support, and we have also got a lot of input from those that are critical or totally against my proposal. One of the things that I often hear from those that are against my proposal is that we should do other things than detecting the communication, like reporting tools and education and other measures. These are very important part, and this is necessary, but that will not help these small children that are victims of sexual violence that could only be found online in the online communication. My proposal was drafted under my direct political guidance by DG Home, of course, closely working with my cabinet, with the Commission Legal Service, but also, of course, with other part of the Commission, the other DGs, and also other consultation of other cabinets, before it was approved by the entire college in May last year. One important part of the proposal, and that was actually one of the things that we wanted to really look deep, I personally wanted to look deeper into, was how to deal with technology and different kind of technology. And the result of this is that my proposal is technology neutral, and I think that is very, very important. So many technologies are there. Technologies are being developed all the time, and they are being developed while we are speaking, and they will continue to develop. So I think it's important that the legislation has to be technology neutral. It's also important to put prevention first. First comes prevention. Only if prevention is not enough, then you might be allowed to do detection, but only after a court decision. It's also important that we continue to comply with all relevant legislation, for example, the GDPR and other requirements. There are no derogation from that in my proposal. It's also important, and I know that's been part of the debate, that it should not be a slippery slope. The proposal specifically prohibits using the detection technologies for any other purpose than the detection of child sexual abuse online, and only with the verified indicators of child sexual abuse provided by the EU Centre. I also would like to share with you that yesterday you asked for additional documents to share with you on this topic, and I have provided that today. We have a special relation between the Commission and Parliament, and that's why we can send it immediately to you and ask you not to spread these documents further on. I think it's important to remember what this is about. I know sometimes in the debate it's like this is a proposal out of nowhere. No, it's a proposal about protecting children from sexual violence. And the question that has to be answered is whether this proposal is effective and proportionate in doing so. And my answer is yes, it is.
Thank you so much, Ylva Johansson. You made it fairly in time, so we move on to Mr. Fotiadis. Okay, first we hear from Mr. Fotiadis, and then we address the questions and answers. Please, Mr. Fotiadis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for the invitation. The scope of our research that we did together with Mr. Giacomo Zantonini and Mr. Ludek Stavinoka has been very explicit, based on dozens of interviews, internal documents, and insight into the Commission's internal deliberations. This year-long investigation has scrutinized the deployment of Commissioner Johansson's political strategy to assemble support in favor of her legislative initiative. Connecting the dots between key actors bankrolling and organizing the advocacy campaign in favor of the CSM proposal and their links with the Commissioner and members of her team has revealed a synthesis exposing relations between lobbies and the European Commission, as well as the function of revolving doors that allowed certain stakeholders a questionable level of interference during the crafting of this EU legislative initiative. Since the investigation was published, we have observed repeated attempts by the Commissioner to discredit it, characterizing it as a collection of insinuations and conspiracy theories looking for a home, but we understand that a determined politician, like Commissioner Johansson, will have to react to critical reporting like she has decided to do. The Commissioner says that the legislative process has been fully transparent, but facts speak to the opposite. Multiple access to document requests we submitted have remained unanswered for months, past the legal deadlines, and following a number of complaints to the European Ombudsman and constant pressure from this investigation, DG Home has started releasing documents which have played a crucial role in furthering the understanding of this close relationship, of its close relations with certain stakeholders. But still a lot of documents are missing, and this is making the picture incomplete. Also, multiple interview requests by this investigation to the Commissioner have remained unanswered, and we would like to reiterate even now that if the Commissioner believes that her right to respond has not been fulfilled, the proposal to take the interview still remains. Lately, serious allegations about micro-targeting advertisement violating the Digital Services Act also emerged, and it's clear that the Commissioner should clarify this immediately, whether micro-targeting has been utilized in support of her campaign, and make also public all the information related to this campaign. To conclude, there have been a number of issues raised by the investigation. We can go into many of those during the discussion possibly, but we would like to attract your attention to one that has not been noticed as it should, and we believe it's very important. The release of scanning technology on mass scale within an adversarial and unregulated environment in the EU poses serious security risks for individuals as well as institutions and authorities. Last month, UK officials admitted to tech companies that there is no existing technology able to scan end-to-end encrypted messages without undermining users' privacy. And according to an interview we had with researchers in the Imperial College, academics Anna Maria Kretu and Sabham Jain, they explained to us the research they published last May, how AI-driven scanning systems could be quietly tweaked to perform facial recognition on user devices without their knowledge, without the user's knowledge. They warned of more vulnerabilities that have yet to be identified when the systems are deployed. Next to that, additional risks emerge on how liberal democracies in the European Union would potentially attempt to exploit the capacity that would be installed by the proposal. And this is a focal point of the investigation that we tried to make clear. One can't fail but to observe how some of the member states that have used or helped proliferate, for example, surveillance capacities offered by actors like NSO and Intellexa the previous years are adopting full-on supportive positions for this legislative proposal during Council deliberations, or that in the only known exchange between Europol and the Commission, the agency has proposed to expand the scanning capacity that will be installed by the proposal to other crime areas, although the Commissioner insists that the safeguards are there to prohibit this. So we believe the issues raised by this investigation remain important. We welcome LIBE Committee's interest and scrutiny, and we hope for a fruitful discussion to follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your attention.
Thank you so much. Now we start the questions and answers. It'll be a first round for every political group, and I can only remind you that you namely address your question to either the guest speakers, so that be specific whom you're addressing to, so that it can be answered right away. Okay. We get started with the EPP. Is it Jerome Lenners or Javier Zarzalejos? Jerome Lenners, you go first.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for being here. For us, it's not so much about the content of the proposal as about the wider working methods. And in the articles that you refer to, there are basically one important accusation, which is that there is a continuous and close working relationship between you and one other partner. Now, in the blog you publish today, you say that you are proud to publish how and what led to the proposal, but then you don't really do that because you mention a number of numbers of who you spoke to. You mentioned 13 organizations by name, and in the letter that we received to response to the Parliament, you refer to the dedicated section in the impact assessment. But none of this gives an idea about who you spoke to, how often, etc. So my question is, would you be willing, since you are proud to publish this, could you give us an overview of who you met with in this period, how often, and at what level? I think that would really help us to put perspective in this matter. Secondly, and Mr. Fotiades mentioned this, it's not about these articles, but about another article about the micro-targeting and the ads that was run in a couple of member states. So the Commission was very quick to publish that everything they did was fully in line with EU law. Now, of course, we have asked the legal service in the Parliament as well to have its opinion on that. But as a result, the guy in the Netherlands who broke the story, Danny Mikic, has been shadow banned on Twitter. How do you feel about that? And could you guarantee that the Commission itself had nothing to do with that? And how did you go about this ad campaign? For instance, I saw that there were, it should not be addressed to people who are interested or identifying as Christians. I'm a Christian. Why would the ad, why should I not see the ad? I'm Dutch and Christian. Why would this ad not be promoted to me? Could you explain a little bit more about that? Secondly, sorry, last question. So, okay, so one main question, having these kind of ads, very quickly saying it's legally possible while not responding to the access to documents request by the journalists that want to investigate this. Do you think, looking back at this, even if it is legally sound, as you say, and we'll check on that later, do you still think it's a wise thing to do, such an ad in the middle of a legislative process where the co-legislators are doing their work, to use targeted ad campaigns in member states to influence this process?
Your response,
Yeah,
Commissioner Johansson.
many questions. So, I'll start with the first one. So who did I meet? I met 3 times with Microsoft, 2 times with Twitter, 6 times with Google, 3 times with Meta, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger, 3 times with TikTok, ByteDance, once with ICANN, once with Apple, once with Amazon, once with Tech Alliance, 2 times with Thorn, and 2 times, I think, with Brave Movement. If that is answer to the question. And then, actually, I've also seen this allegation that the Twitter campaign may not be totally complying with DSA. I take this very, very seriously. So this has to be investigated, of course, and clarified. So this is, of course, something that need to be totally, because, of course, everything that the Commission is into has to be in line with the regulation that we have to follow. So this is being looked into right now. In the campaign further on, this is run by my services together with DG Com and also with contractors, so I'm not involved in any specific design of this campaign. But what is important to say is that it's quite common that the Commission have campaigns to promote our own proposals. This is not the first time, and it will for sure not be the last time that we do that. That has been done many times. Sorry, I'm looking for, yes, for example, we had it from DG Environment that had a promotion campaign for the nature restoration law, which, by the way, was a proposal that had a very narrow vote in the European Parliament to get the position. We had it from DG Klima on carbon removals. We had it on DG Just, from DG Just on the Victims' Rights Directive. We had it from DG Sante on EU pharma legislation. We had it from DG Move on the road transportation emission. So I'm not the first one, I'm not going to be the last one. This is common that we promote our proposals, and I think this is also actually obligation. The Commission is not neutral. We put forward proposals, and of course, we would like to see our proposal gain support. Then we come later on to another phase, and that is when we go into the trilogues. When Parliament and Council has found their position, then also Commission has the role of facilitating compromises. And those that have been into trilogues with me know that this is also what we are doing as a Commission. Thank you.
Now we move on to Birgit Sippel for the S&D.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Ylva, for being here with us. Now I will try to stick for 3 or 4 questions. Over the last 4 years at least, the Oak Foundation provided different organizations like Thorn Brave Movement, We Protect, financial support of millions of euros. And my question would be, how did you weigh the input from those organizations, especially compared to input from other child protection organizations? Secondly, I would like to know how the Commission assesses the situation if one of DG Home's key members of staff is simultaneously working on the file and preparing the draft proposal, while at the same time holding an unpaid position in the board of one of the organizations that was supported by the Oak Foundation. Finally, we have to talk to many stakeholders, but we also can take advantage from some other sources. So to what extent have you taken into account the experiences with the interim legislation that we had on child sexual abuse? And do you have prepared an implement report about that so that we can look into that? Just because you mentioned the meaningful prevention that is necessary, I would like to refer to the 2011 directive of combating child sexual abuse, which already asked for meaningful prevention mechanisms in the member states, but obviously at least 12 member states have not implemented that directive so far. So how could that happen after more than 10 years right now? And finally, a question also to the journalist. With regard to your article, what kind of access do you mean precisely when you talk about emails that reveal a continuous and close working relationship between the two sides in the months following the rollout of the CSAM proposal, with the Commission repeatedly facilitating Thorn's access to crucial decision-making venues attended by ministers and representatives of European member states? Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Yes. First, actually, this Oak Foundation, I never heard of before I read about this in this article. It's obviously a foundation that works on child protection, but also other issues. They are part, actually, of the European Programme for Integration and Migration also. I'm not aware on how much money they spent or to what, but I tried to find out that they spend like 480 million euros per year to different organizations. This has not been a case at all. When we consult and listen to all the stakeholders that have approached us, have been part of the public consultation that we have met with, of course, the most important thing is the merit of their knowledge. And what kind of thing they can bring that could help finalize and find the right balance of this proposal. You are not really clear on who of my staff would be part of an organization, but I wonder if that is We Protect Global Alliance that you mean? Yeah, We Protect Global Alliance is an organization that we have founded. The EU Commission has been part of, is one of the founder of this organization. So we are deeply involved and will continue to be, together with around 100 governments and a lot of private sector organizations and civil society organizations. So we are funding and we are a part of this organization. And then on the directive, So this is really when I took office, as I said, I presented this strategy and to say that we should evaluate the directive. And we have done that. And the outcome of that is that I will also propose a revision of the directive. Whether that wasn't done earlier, I can't really say. You ask also about interim legislation, and that I must say, because we should publish a report on the implementation of the interim framework. And that has been, I must tell you, very, very difficult. We have received very little data from member states, and only from a few of them, and also data that has not really been the kind of detail that actually we are obliged to report to you. So this is one of the things that we are working on right now, trying to get the right data out of this, but we have not been able to get the data that's necessary to produce this report so far. When it comes to access to documents, there are different ways. One, sorry, this is not, of course, something that I do not deal with on a daily basis, but there are regulations for people that would like to have access to documents. And as far as I know, this has been followed according to the regulation, and also, contrary to what was said earlier, the documents was also sent before the ombudsman started an inquiry, but we will of course work with the ombudsman. And there is this regulation saying that if a third party is involved, we are not allowed to share the documents if the third party will not agree to it. That could be overruled by the SecGen, and that is where many of those issues are right now. So we are following the regulation on that. When it comes to the Parliament, we have a special relation with you, and that's why I was able to send immediately the documents that you requested yesterday, and of course with the special prerequisite that it should not be shared further.
And if I get you right, Birgit, you also addressed a question to Mr. Fotiadis as to the exactly what you mean, what is exactly the report you referred to in your first round of intervention. Would you address that specific question, Mr. Fotiadis?
Yes, thank you. I understand this refers to the part of the investigation that presents the evidence that occurred from a document which is in a thread of email exchanges between one of the stakeholders that played a key role, standing at the core of the efforts to advocate in favor of the technology, as well as the proposal in general, and representatives from DG Home. We don't have the names because they are redacted on the document, but it's an obvious exchange discussing details on how the stakeholder would be able to allocate experts that would speak in workshops, first attended by representatives of the member states, and then afterwards actually by ministers in the council in a meeting chaired by Commissioner Johansson. So when we say facilitate, it's obvious that the EU officials discuss what kind of experts would be available from this particular stakeholder to attend this meeting and to present their points of view, which seems to be a privileged access. Also in the same email thread, there's mention of EU officials being allocated to specifically attend the cooperation between the stakeholder and the DG Home on the proposal, which to our understanding is something that goes way beyond the level of consultations or exchange of views or exchange of opinions on the proposal, and speaks directly to cooperation. And that's why we believe this piece of evidence is of importance and should be mentioned in the investigation. Given that these documents are now in the public domain technically, since they occurred from the access to document request procedures, I suppose it's fine we send you the documents and you assess them for their value on your own.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will focus in particular on the ad campaign. And I would like to start by saying that one principle of democracy is that we have procedures, because the end doesn't justify the means. And the European Commission has the right to be very attached to its legislative proposals, but there are privileged channels for the European Commission to communicate with the two legislators. And that is not an ad campaign on Twitter. That is the proper interinstitutional legislative channels. Now, it is interesting to look at the timeline of the ad campaign and what happened when a Dutch journalist stumbled over this ad campaign, because it's revealing. These are the dates I got, so you have to correct me if I'm wrong. On September 14th, the EU Council discussed the CSAM file and was unable to find a majority. The next day, September 15th, the ad campaign started. Then Danny Mekic, the Dutch guy, he discovered this, and he, on September 23rd and 24th, he submitted various access to documents requests, and this was during the weekend. So they landed on the desk of the Commission on a Monday, 25th. On the 26th, the ad campaign was halted. So after his access to documents request arrived. Then on October 13th, he published an article in a Dutch newspaper about this. And he also received from the Commission a notice that his access to document request had been extended. The timeline had been extended. On the very same day, his Twitter account was censored, shadow banned, as it's called. Now, my questions are the following. First of all, on the latter, has the Commission at any point been in contact with Twitter, now known as X, regarding the account of Danny Mekic or anybody else, because it has affected some other people who had retweeted the message, and requested some action of X to censor him or whatever? Secondly, when this all came out on the campaign, you tweeted that everything was 100% legal and in accordance with the rules. Yet now you said that you are investigating. Then I would like to know, was your tweet inaccurate? And if you're investigating, why are there no results yet? Then I'm coming to a conclusion, Chair, but I think it is important what we're doing here. Because you also said that this is a method which is used more frequently by the Commission for other files. I find that deeply disturbing. As I said, this is a matter of democracy, institution between institution. And then finally, you say it is fully compliant, but we are working on political advertising, rules for political advertising. It would seem to me that what the Commission is doing is not in line with those rules. And my final question is to the LIBE Secretariat. How come the request to the Commission was only sent yesterday when we had already requested it last week?
Your turn, Commissioner Johansson.
Yes, thank you. When it comes to details about the ad and the Twitter campaign, I can't answer that. That is for my service to answer together with DG.com that are responsible for the campaign. But I will answer on the political issues. First, I have an opposite opinion than you. I think that the Commission should defend and explain and promote our proposals. We do that. And we have done that, and I think it's a good practice to do so, because we are taking stance, and we should defend our stance. But we have opposite views here. But that is what we are doing, and that is, as I already explained, also done by other part of the Commission. What I said that when I made a tweet on the 100% legal. That was based on the information I had, but I have to be very open. Then I've got other information that it could be question marks on the compliance with DSA, and I take this very seriously. So that, of course, if that is the case, then of course it has to be consequences on that. So that it's important that we have to look into. Of course, we always have to comply with the regulation. There's no question about that. On X, former Twitter, I have no idea why they have taken this decision. I think this decision has to be asked towards to them. As far as I know, there's been no contact on this topic with my service, or at least not with me or my cabinet, with Twitter or X. But of course, we have other other contacts with, for example, X was part of one of the meetings my service had 2 weeks ago after the Hamas terrorist attack on the terrorist content online, but that's something totally different. So there are contacts, of course, but on this topic, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Now we move on to the Greens. Who is it going to be? Saskia Brickman.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Johansson. I think what our committee wants is answers to the different allegations that have been published in the press recently, and that Mr. Fotiadis has partly presented today. So far, we don't have clear answers about allegations on commercial interests and heavy lobbying that were part of the equation when setting up and drafting the proposal from the Commission on CSA. There are allegations concerning undue and privileged access of artificial intelligence companies and other stakeholders to the Commissioner and staff drafting the regulation. We all think that the fight against child sexual abuse should not be left out to legally improved and non-fundamental rights compliant solutions. Today, our concerns are serious questions of unethical conduct, unloyalty, mistrust, and breach in sincere cooperation between our institutions and the independence, impartiality, and integrity requirements of the members and staff of the European Commission. You're right, the European Commission is not neutral. Obviously, the European Commission is doing politics, but commercial interests and economic revenues should never govern and orient the decision-making, particularly when it comes to influencing such a sensitive legislation that very vulnerable victims are concerned and that other organizations, having tried many times to warn you about the adverse effects of your proposals, seem to not have been listened to as much as others in this case. I have some questions. Is it common practice from high-level officials from the European Commission to be sitting in the board of external organizations, when those organizations also obviously receive a lot of money from other organizations and foundations that are all seem to be part of somehow a network? We would like also the Commission to bring light on this. This is part of the inquiry of the journalists. We understand people from your team working on this file have been in regular and close contact with Thorn, ensuring Thorn's presence at the European Commission events, anticipating the legislative proposal and its vulgarization, as well as coordinating publication. Is that the usual framework for consultation with stakeholders? Is it usual that you personally write to private organizations to get support? I would like a complete list of the stakeholders that have been involved that closely in the process. Also, we need more proof to be convinced that the process under which the European Commission has led the legislative process on CSI is fully transparent, regular, and lobby-free. I think in the follow-up of the Qatar-gate, we need full transparency on this. And finally, as a commissioner responsible for internal security, including Europol, what do you think about Europol's relation with the private sector, especially the fact that Europol's officials are getting jobs straight after they contract at the agency, with companies actually lobbying Europol or having commercial interests with them? Is that in line with the necessary integrity and independence of the European Law Enforcement Agency? I thought really that revolving doors belonged to the past after the scandal that we just went through. Thank you.
Of course, I'm turning back to the Commission, but just to remind you, we still have 4 more points to go this afternoon. 4 more points. So, of course, this is an interesting sensitive point for sure, but if I give you 2 minutes, don't double it, just for the sake of nothing. Try to, before starting out, try to, okay, it's too long. Maybe it's too long what I have before my eyes. I have to go right to the points, shoot the question as sharp, as fast as possible. That is the usual thing we do here, so that we mind the timing. Don't double it for the sake of nothing. course, I respect you, don't cut you, but just have it in mind, the rest of you, okay? Please, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you. There was a lot of questions. First, on the commercial interest. I think this has been, when we looked into this, with the very different kind of technologies that are being used for the detection, my conclusion was that it's, as I said in the beginning, it's extremely important that the proposal and the legislation is technology neutral. That means they're not favoring any specific technology, but setting up requirements for the technology that has to be compliant with our EU legislation, of course, with GDPR and other requirements that we will set up, and has to be the less privacy-intrusive technology. But there are no specific technologies mentioned, and I think this is an important part. So there's no specific technology that's been favored in this proposal. It's the Commission, the College, that are responsible for the proposal and the text in the proposal, and it's been written by my service and my cabinet and a different part of Commission under my supervise. Yes, I've listened to a lot of voices, and a lot of them have been critical and against coming with this proposal. The fact that I have not followed their advice is not the same that I have not listened to them. But it's, of course, also the Commission to have its own opinion on what is necessary to do. And I must say that many of those that have been critical towards coming with a proposal on this are proposing that we should not detect and do other means instead. And of course, that will not address the problem. So that is part of the problem. So that has to be, if we would like to have a proposal and a legislation that actually effectively address the problem, then in one way or another, these illegal content has to be detected. If you're talking again on the We Protect Global Alliance, it's a special thing because we are the founder of this organization as the Commission. When it comes to Europol's relation and the question of evolving door on Europol, sorry, but I'm not in a position to have any specific knowledge on this, so that question has to be, I think, posed to Europol.
Thank you. Now we move on to ID. Is it you, Madame Chagnon? Okay.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, c'est bien moi. Madame le Commissaire, merci beaucoup d'être venue aujourd'hui répondre à nos questions parce qu'elles sont nombreuses. Je vais rester bref parce que Monsieur le Président rappelle à chaque fois avant ma prise de parole que tout le monde dépasse et ensuite, quand je dépasse de 5 secondes, il tape sur la table. Donc, je vais tenter, cher Monsieur le Président, de rester bien dans les 2 minutes, même si mes collègues dépassent allègrement les 3, voire les 4. Je tenais à le faire et je compte dans mon temps de parole. Donc, je vais aller très vite, Madame le Commissaire. Question numéro 1. Madame Johansson, derrière vos nombreuses entreprises, je suis très surprise que vous n'avez pas été aux Pays-Bas visiter l'organisation mondialement connue, le plus ancienne de l'Europe en matière de protection des enfants. Vous la connaissez bien, ils vous ont invité et vous avez refusé leur invitation. J'aimerais bien que vous me répondiez pourquoi, puisque vous voyagez allègrement 11 heures pour aller en Californie, 2 heures pour aller à côté d'Amsterdam. Apparemment, ça n'a pas été possible. Deuxièmement, je vais de surprise en surprise avec vous sur les organismes que vous créez. Donc là, j'apprends à l'instant que We Protect a été une création de la Commission fondée et financée par la Commission. Ce n'est pas la première fois, Madame Johansson. Lors de votre présentation du pacte d'immigration et les multiples réunions qui ont suivi, nous avons assisté surtout en webconférence à des réunions d'experts. Et à l'époque, j'ai regardé un peu l'origine des experts et des organismes que vous avez appelés. Et je trouve de nombreux, comment on dit, porosités entre les cabinets, les hauts fonctionnaires et les organismes que vous créez et que vous appelez ensuite des experts. J'aimerais bien avoir vos impressions là-dessus parce que, à mon sens, un organisme créé par la Commission n'est pas vraiment objectif. Troisièmement, Vous avez dit dans votre introduction que les articles qui ont été publiés, il s'agit de beaucoup de mésinformations, désinformations. J'aimerais bien savoir si vous avez saisi la justice, Madame Johansson, et si vous avez qualifié ce que vous reprochez à ces journalistes en matière de ce qu'ils ont écrit dans leurs articles divers. Je voudrais faire une proposition, c'est de mettre en gel pour le moment tout ce projet, tant que les investigations de votre côté et du côté des journalistes n'ont pas abouti. Je pense qu'on est dans une situation extrêmement malsaine qui plane sur ce projet. Donc nous sommes bien sûr tous des supporters de protéger les enfants en ligne, mais là, je pense que ce dossier est quand même parsemé d'irrégularités. Juste une petite question pour M. Fotiadis. Monsieur Fotiadis, estimez-vous, en tant que journaliste, journaliste d'investigation, estimez-vous qu'il y a une atteinte à la liberté de la presse quand vous voyez comment se déroule la suite de votre article? Je vous remercie.
Madame Chagnon, vous me permettez une blague. Vous aussi avez excédé largement votre temps. Et en fait, vous avez été les seuls dans laquelle je n'ai pas fait recours à mon marteau. Your floor.
Thank you. I hope I can catch all your questions. But first, of course, when we announced that we are working on this legislative proposal, and it's been a very long process to do that with impact assessment and all public consultation, and a lot of people and a lot of organizations have approached me personally or my cabinet or my service, and I appreciate that. And been invited to several, conferences and visiting and all of that. And I appreciate that because that's a part of a democratic process. I regret that I don't have time to go, and actually I have to say no to most of the invitation I got. Unfortunately, that's the case. But I think this is part of a democratic process, and it's good, even if we can't attend everything that, of course, personally that I'm invited to. And of course, we have to take into account that most of those that would like to influence the upcoming proposal, they also have their own agenda. And that's absolutely in order. Organizations have their own agenda, companies have their own agenda, and there might also be experts that have their own agenda. And that, of course, we have to take into account when we listen to the different kind of voices. So this is also part of the process to do that. Yes, the We Protect Global Alliance, actually I'm proud of that organization, and it's now a very, very big one with, as I already mentioned, more than 100 governments and a lot of other organizations in it, part of it. So I think that is something that we should be proud of. And of course, I have no thought at ever to go to court for any journalist. That's a stupid idea. We need a public debate. And if you think things are not correct, then you should argue what is correct. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Now we move on.
The journalist question. There's a question.
Yes, I see.
I had a question for the journalist too,
yes,
Mr. President.
Yes, there was a question for Mr. Fotiadis. Yes, it's true. Mr. Fotiadis, you respond to the question that has been addressed to you.
Thank you for the question. To keep it short, we don't believe there's been a restriction of freedom of press in this case. I would like to unpack a little bit what the Commissioner means, according to our understanding, when she talks about disinformation, or when she called the investigation a collation of insinuations looking for a home, conspiracies and insinuations looking for a home. When an investigation comes out, there's a number of advisors, spin doctors that work for the Commissioner or in cooperation with her advisors that will analyze the investigation and see, how they can control what, from their point of view, is damage. Do damage control practically. So in this case, it's obvious that since no empirical fact in the investigations could be questioned, the position was that there should be an effort to discredit the product of the investigation as a whole by questioning its foundations and its intentions. To be honest, I was surprised seeing the Commissioner adopting this advice because I hold it in high regard for the political qualities it demonstrates, and I follow DG Home's work for years. And I was surprised that she found this approach creative. On the contrary, we thought that this is a controversial approach that, if used too much, abused, it could turn to an attack on journalists. In that case, very cleverly, the boundaries have not been crossed, but since you put the question there, we think that there should be some caution on how this advice is being adopted in the future, because it could turn on to an attack on journalists if it continues like this. You cannot just dismiss everything by calling it fake news and not having responded to 4 or 5 or I don't remember how many interview requests beforehand.
Now it's answered. We move on to the link. Frau Ernst.
Ja, vielen Dank, Frau Johansson. Es ist schon erstaunlich, wie wenig Sie zum eigentlichen Thema der Diskussion hier gesprochen haben. Und wenn man so liest quer, dann stellen Sie die Enthüllungen nicht als solche dar, sondern sprechen immer von der normalen Konsultationstätigkeit der Kommission. Und dazu habe ich Fragen. Erstens, ist es normal, dass sich die Kommission geweigert hat, die Beziehungen zwischen Thorn und ihrem Kabinett im Rahmen des EU-Informationsfreiheitsmechanismus detailliert darzustellen und erst nach 7-monatiger Kommunikation über den Zugang zu Dokumenten und der Intervention des Europäischen Bürgerbeauftragten veröffentlichte? Zweitens, ich möchte gern wissen, ob es normale Geschäftsgebaren sind, dass die Kommission Thorn wiederholt den Zugang zu wichtigen Entscheidungsterminen, an dem Minister, Vertreter der EU, Mitgliedstaaten teilnahmen und so weiter, ermöglichte. Drittens, es ist also völlig normal in den Geschäftsgebaren, dass ein Mitarbeiter der Kommission, Laboral Jiménez, der eine zentrale Rolle bei der Ausarbeitung der Verordnung gespielt hat, aber zugleich auch Mitglied im WeProtect-Vorstand ist, also eine Organisation, die aktiv lobbyiert ihren Vorschlag, konkret für Strategien, für die Ausarbeitung von Strategien vorgesehen ist und obendrein noch fast 1 Million Euro von Ihnen als Kommission erhalten hat, diese Organisation. Das nächste, Artikel 50 Ihres Vorschlags, wird festgelegt, dass das zu schaffende EU-Zentrum Software beschaffen und zur Verfügung stellen soll, mit der die Chat-Anbieter die Detection Order ausführen können. Nach aktuellem Stand sind auf dem Markt eigentlich nur entsprechende Software von Thorn und von Microsoft verfügbar. Rein zufällig also die Produkte genau der Anbieter, denen Sie Tor und Türen geöffnet haben. Welche Software, welcher anderen Anbieter käme denn noch in Frage? So, nächste Frage. Wie reagieren Sie auf die Aussage des Europäischen Datenschutzbeauftragten, der am Montag sagte, zu Ihrem Vorschlag: Ich bin besorgt, dass der Vorschlag die Grundlagen der Privatsphäre in einer demokratischen Gesellschaft in Frage stellt, die, wenn sie einmal untergraben sind, zu einem radikalen Wandel führen, von dem es kein Zurück mehr gibt. Nächste Frage. Stimmt es, dass als Europol-Beamte vorschlugen, das vorgeschlagene EU-Zentrum nicht nur für die Suche nach CSAM zu nutzen, sondern auch auf andere Bereiche auszuweiten und Sie ausdrücklich nicht widersprochen haben? Und die letzte Frage ist die Frage nach den Stakeholdern. Sie haben ja gesagt, also Sie haben sich mit vielen getroffen. Und wie gehen Sie mit dem Vorwurf um, dass dies nur einseitig erfolgt ist? Beispielsweise haben Sie mehrfach gerade Anfragen von ETRI, der Organisation für europäische digitale Rechte, abgewiesen und sich nicht mit ihnen getroffen. Und das ist ja eine bedeutende Organisation, wenn wir über diese Themen sprechen. Vielen Dank.
Commissioner Johansson.
Yes. First, on the access to document, as I already said, we are following the regulation. When there is a question of access to document that we have, as the Commission, received from a third party, according to the regulation, we have to check with the third party whether they allow us to share it or not. If the answer is not, we are not allowed to share it from the DD side. That could be a decision later on from the SecGen. So we are following this procedure exactly according to the regulations. And of course, I try to meet as many of ministers and others that would like to meet me as possible. But of course, I can't meet with everybody. And I must say that all organizations that work in different parts, nationally or globally, or on the protection of children, and specifically to protect children against child sexual abuse. I think it's not fair to just call them lobbyists. I think they are doing a great job. And I think it's important what they are doing. And actually, with their hotlines, with the different kind of support that they are doing, they are actually part of the protection and rescuing of children. Then when it comes to, you said that it's only Thorn and Microsoft that have the technology that is necessary for the scanning. That is absolutely not true. And EDRI is an organization that we have met, and I have also met them personally in panel discussions on this specific topic.
Thank you. Now, we could open...
And all the other questions you didn't answer.
What were the other questions?
She took note.
Yeah, sorry. Was there many questions? What was else? What Europol? So first, we are the one, the Commission is the one who proposes the law. You, together with Council, are the one who decides about the law. Europol has to comply with the law. Europol has not a role when it comes to presenting or proposing the law or to take decision on the law.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't got answers to a lot of questions. Meine Frage war nach dem Artikel 50, Chat-Anbieter für die Detection Order. Da habe ich gefragt, inwieweit tatsächlich noch andere außer Thorn und Microsoft in diese Software liefern können und inwieweit sie mit diesen in Kontakt gestanden haben oder sich von vornherein nur auf diese Anbieter orientiert haben. Und ETRI würde ich gerne wissen, warum Sie ausgerechnet diese Organisation nicht angehört haben. Verstehe ich nicht.
I think I already answered the last question. EDRI has been part of those that we have met during the consultation period. I have met them personally in the discussion here in Parliament, together with others in a panel discussion. On the article, that is the technology neutral article, and this is important because what I have learned is that most of the internet companies have different kind of technology that they use. And these technologies are of different quality, I must say. And that is why it's important to not rely on a specific technology. So that's why we took the decision. And that's, of course, one of the reasons why we have been lobbying by many companies that they would like to have another formulation here. But we would like to have it, and I would like to have it technology neutral. So it's free for anybody to use the technology that meets the requirement. If no technology meets the requirement, detection cannot take place.
Try to make it now in 1 minute, a strict phrase your mind to 1 minute, and then Commissioner answer. Oh, Mr. Fotiadis, if that is the case, we'll be having the round to respond. Okay, first it's Mrs. Kidefall.
Tack så mycket och tack kommissionär Johansson för att du kommit hit idag och för att diskutera det förslag till förordning som allt fler med fog kallar för chat control. Det är ju nämligen så att en förordning med den utformningen som du och kommissionen förespråkar med alla goda intentioner till trots skulle innebära massövervakning och ett omöjliggörande av säkert och krypterat informationsutbyte. Det är vad bland andra kommissionens egen rättstjänst, EU-dataskyddsmyndighet och FNs människorättskommissionär har konstaterat. Och det glädjer mig att även förhandlingarna här i Europaparlamentet tycks landa i en position som respekterar inte minst integriteten för totalstreckskrypterat material. Jag tycker att det är bra att du träffar företag. Det gör vi alla förtroendevalda troligtvis. Men i ditt blogginlägg så skriver du att svaret på frågan på vem som kan vinna på förslaget är barnen. Menar du att kvasiföretag som Thorn som säljer skanningsprogramvara inte har en chans att tjäna på en lag som kräver att all kommunikation i EU ska skannas? Och jag undrar om det finns en beräkning av hur mycket ett sådant avtal skulle vara värt.
1 minute.
Thank you very much, Chair. First, I just want to say it's disrespectful towards the survivors to call this proposal for chat control. It's not about chat control. It's about prevent and combat child sexual abuse. I want to just start with that. The second is I'm not going to go into the content of the legislation so much because that's a vivid discussion in the Parliament and that's very fair discussion. Nevertheless, it is, of course, important with access to documents. I myself am the rapporteur for the legislation. Unfortunately, the member states do not want to resume the negotiations on the legislation. This is something that we really need to work with because it is an issue that is relevant for all the EU institutions. The second is the issue of scrutiny. That is super important. However, my question actually goes to Mr. Fotiadis. Is there any also scrutiny on those forces that has been against the legislation? I mean, we have, for example, in Sweden, something called Mulvad, an organization or company that actually has posted the whole cities, or at least areas of cities, and that must cost quite a lot, especially, for example, airport and other important areas. So is there any scrutiny on the other side also? Thank you very much.
Thank you. 1 minute, I remind you. It'll be now for Renew, Moritz Körner.
Ja, vielen Dank, Frau Kommissarin. Ich muss sagen, ich bin entsetzt, dass Sie erneut heute Berichte als Desinformation angekündigt haben. Dinge, die in Die Zeit und anderen sehr renommierten europäischen Medien veröffentlicht werden, als Desinformation zu bezeichnen, finde ich sehr, sehr fragwürdig und frage mich ehrlich gesagt, wie das zu der Kommission passt, die sonst die Medienfreiheit verteidigen möchte. Meine zweite Frage bezieht sich auf die Microtargeting-Kampagne. Sie haben jetzt gesagt, Sie dürfen ja über Ihre Vorschläge informieren. Informieren, die Öffentlichkeit, die Presse allgemein. Das darf die Kommission natürlich. Aber Sie haben ja gezielt einzelne Gruppen in einzelnen Mitgliedstaaten angesprochen. Das heißt, Sie haben nicht allgemeine Informationen für alle Bürgerinnen und Bürger dargestellt, sondern Sie haben Microtargeting, gezielte Gruppen angesprochen. Und das ist nun wirklich nicht im Rahmen des Mandats der Kommission. Und dass das bei anderen Gesetzesvorschlägen gemacht wird, finde ich schlimm genug. Ich finde, die Kommission muss diese Praxis einstellen.
It's Patrick Breyer, just 1 minute. Greens.
Frau Kommissarin, es geht heute um Chatcontrol-gate, um Ihre Verflechtung mit einem ausländischen Lobbynetzwerk. So eng, dass Sie der Thorn-Chefin selbst geschrieben haben, die von mir vorgeschlagene Verordnung ist eine starke europäische Antwort. Ohne Ihre Hilfe wären wir nicht so weit gekommen. So viel zum Ausmaß des Einflusses. Ich darf Ihnen gratulieren zu Ihrem neuen Nebenjob als Überwachungsinfluencerin im Internet. Sie wagen es ja tatsächlich im laufenden Gesetzgebungsverfahren, kritische Mitgliedstaaten durch eine gezielte Desinformationskampagne, emotionale Kampagne aus Steuermitteln unter Druck setzen zu wollen. Was würden Sie eigentlich sagen, wenn das Parlament gezielt in Ihrem Heimatland Schweden Werbung schalten würde, um Ihren autoritären und grundrechtswidrigen Chatkontrolle-Vorschlag in der Luft zu zerreißen? Haben Sie überhaupt Respekt für die Demokratie und ihre Rolle im Gesetzgebungsverfahren? Wo sonst soll es passiert sein, dass gezielt bestimmte Länder unter Druck gesetzt worden sind? Aber wissen Sie, das Beste an Ihren skandalösen Methoden ist, dass Sie damit politisch gescheitert sind im Rat und hier im Parlament. Wir werden Sie für Ihre illegalen Machenschaften zur Verantwortung ziehen. Unser juristischer Dienst prüft eine mögliche Klage gegen die EU-Kommission. Und heute habe ich Beschwerde bei der EU-Ombudsfrau eingereicht. Darf ich eine Frage an den Journalisten anschließen, Herr Vorsitzender? Dankeschön. Vielen Dank für Ihre augenöffnenden Recherchen. Ein großer Dienst an unseren Grundrechten. Können Sie sagen, was Sie zu dieser Recherche veranlasst hat und ob die EU-Kommission involviert war, als PR-Agenturen quasi eine Einflussnahme geskriptet haben im Rahmen dieser Kampagne?
And now, Nikolaus Fest, last minute. Eine letzte Minute.
Ja, vielen Dank. Ich bin ja meistens sowieso sehr kurz. Ich würde einfach nur darum bitten, Frau Johansson, dass Sie endlich die Frage der Kollegin Ernst beantworten. Haben Sie noch andere Software außer die von Microsoft geprüft? Und wenn ja, mit welchen Firmen oder die Software welcher Firma haben Sie geprüft? Und wenn nein, wenn es nur Microsoft war, dann bitte ich dann auch eine Auskunft darüber, warum das nur mit Microsoft der Fall war. Vielen Dank.
Now, I suggest, as we have exceeded largely the allocated timing for this point in the order of the day, and there should be some final say also for Mr. Fotiadis. Mr. Fotiadis, you take the floor now. We hear you. If you have a final comment, and then we will be back to our commissioner. Mr. Fotiadis.
Thank you. Very briefly, just to answer to the two questions referred about scrutiny on critics. I don't know of this particular organization mentioned. We've spoken, interviewed, interacted with a lot of stakeholders from the critical coming from a critical point of view. We haven't seen this level of coordination that we have observed in what we present in the investigation. We don't know everything. We don't hold the absolute truth. So more research can complement this picture. What triggered the research is the uncommon appearance of an EU official in an NGO who is the product of governmental initiatives. It was an unusual and very uncommon state of play. We kept looking into further links, connecting further dots until we came with the picture that is presented in the investigation. One final comment from me and on behalf of my colleagues is that despite all the criticism raised and all the issues raised by the investigation, we believe that the Commissioner's effort has been creative and contributed a lot in raising awareness on this issue that has to be solved with the appropriate legislative measures. We don't believe that by writing this investigation we have taken the position against children or against people that face this situation, although this has been implied quite a lot. On the contrary, we think we have contributed sincerely and importantly in the debate, and we're looking forward to see what the outcome of the negotiations will be. We heard there is some progress yesterday. If someone could inform about this, it would be important so we understand how things are also moving on. Thank you for all your attention and for giving us the time to contribute.
Now, over to you for final comments.
Yes, I also should answer the questions, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So first, Wes, I read earlier the list of companies that I personally met to look into the different kind of technologies. For example, with Google and Meta, they have different technologies that they use for this. And my services have also had further contacts with other companies. When it comes to congratulations for my proposal, actually I've been congratulated by a lot of stakeholders and a lot of MEPs and a lot of ministers and a lot of NGOs. So that's quite normal, I should say, that when you come with a proposal, you will get reactions. And those that are in favor of the proposal will congratulate you for you have done a good proposal. So that is actually part of what is normal, that you are being congratulated by those that are in favor. Yes, of course, the Commission in its communication can target specific countries or specific groups, but it has always to be compliant with the regulation, for example, the DSA. And this is really important to keep in mind. To Mrs. Skyttedal, actually, this is not mass surveillance, so I have another opinion than you. This will not mean that all communication, my proposal will not mean that all communication will be scanned. Compared to the situation today, it will be much more limited. Today, companies are allowed to scan if they search for child sexual abuse material. That's why we received these 5.2 million videos and pictures and grooming attempts, 70% from private communication. If my proposal is adopted, this will be limited. So only those that really cannot deal with the problem with mitigating measures and with the mitigating measures, and only after a court decision and only during a specific period, they will be allowed to do the detection. Others will not be allowed. We will also limit the reporting so that we will also receive fewer, but hopefully better reports. And yes, that I think are the questions. And then if I am allowed to say some final remarks, and I think it's important to, have I forgot something? No?
Well, I think there was a question by Moritz Körner about that the Commission has the right, of course, to seek the support of the two legislators and to inform publicly, but that's not the same as micro-targeting. And I think there was also still a question by my colleague Jeroen Leenaars about why Christians were let's say, to be excluded from this targeting campaign.
I think I already answered these two questions. So on details, when it comes to the communication campaign, it has to be put to my services because I'm not involved in the details of the campaign. The right, and I think it was appropriate to actually have campaigns that are targeted. I will defend that, but it always has to be compliant, of course, with the regulation.
You're politically responsible.
Sorry, but I don't have this kind of information to answer on these details. You can, of course, we are, but this is, this I don't...
You're more than free to address written questions to the Commission, as we usually do. Yeah. We all do that.
Excuse me, Chair, but the problem is if we ask written questions to the Commission, we have to wait for about 2 months, and then we get answers without any answers. So I'm just asking the Commissioner if she doesn't have the information today, but her services are responsible, and she's responsible for her services, if she could, at a short notice, end of this week, reply to this question.
Of course, we are ready to provide the Parliament with information and answer to questions. And when it comes to the information campaign, I already said that in the beginning, I think it's right to do an information campaign. It has to be compliant with the legislation, and the information I don't have myself, but that has to be put to my services, and I will instruct them to answer on this as quick as possible.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
But can I have also a final word? I think it's important here, because here we have been discussing a lot of things that are not in the core of this proposal. The core of this proposal is the protection of children on the ongoing sexual violence towards children, to stop the spreading of these pictures and videos to circulate on the internet, and to stop the spread of this criminal content. And I think that the questions that need to be answered is this legislation necessary? Is it effective? Is it proportionate? And does it include the necessary safeguards? And of course, Parliament, you are in the position and the process to finalize your position on that. My position on these questions is yes.
Commissioner Johansson, we allocated 1 hour for this discussion. It's been 1 hour and a half. Fair enough. We thank you. Actually, because you also faced the LIBE committee live as it is. No, you've heard of it, and we thank you for that. Thank you. No, is that a point of order or what? Is that a questioning? A point of, what is it?
Ja.
We should move on. We still have 3 points. I'm reminding you.
No?
We still have 4 more points to go through.
It's a final word. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ich möchte mein persönliches Misstrauen gegenüber der Kommissarin hiermit zum Ausdruck bringen. Sie hat als Kommissarin ihr Mandat meines Erachtens missbraucht und ihre Arbeit wohl als Lobbypolitik verstanden und damit die Demokratie untergraben.
Es ist nicht ein ordentlicher Punkt, Frau
Moment
Ernst.
mal, ich kann das jetzt zu Ende
Mit völliger
bringen.
Respekt,
Ja, die
das ist
Demokratie
nicht
untergraben
keine ordentliche
und damit
Punkt.
auch die Öffentlichkeit brüskiert und auch unsere Arbeit damit in Abrede gestellt. Das halte ich für unverantwortlich, deshalb hat sie jedes Vertrauen als Kommissarin in mir verloren.
Das ist ein Punkt. So, okay. Das ist vorbei für diesen Punkt in der Tagesordnung. So, wir folgen mit dem nächsten Punkt in unserer Tagesordnung. Sofort. Thank you.